results since 2019, 2020, and 21. Their work permits are expired and their health cards are also expired. So what should they do further for surviving? So why only caregiver program has no processing time limit?
So the long answer is we established a pilot program that said we were going to process 6,000 people last year, and the spaces went like this. And we met our goal. And now that we've got a pilot that's demonstrated enormous demand, we have to do some thinking on how we can transition that, learn lessons as to what's successful with it, how are people doing, to figure out what the long-term solution is going to be. It's always a challenging thing when you have a pilot that's really popular, because I'm thinking in the back of my head, that's a good sign that we could be doing it again or doing more of it. On the flip side, one of the challenges that I see is I'm also dealing with a pie I'm trying to grow every year to the extent that I can get more funding to grow and grow and grow the total number of people. But for every space that you have for somebody to be resettled as a PR, that's a space that has to come out of another stream until you're able to grow that pie and build out the processing capacity. And that because if you increase spaces without increasing processing capacity, you have longer backlogs, and that's not a consequence that anybody wants either. I'd point out, though, as well, that the Caregivers pilot is not the only way that caregivers can come to Canada under our different immigration streams. We have, in Atlantic Canada, the Atlantic Immigration Program. We have the provincial nominee programs that come in. We've had the Caregiver pilot. We're also, right now, looking at different opportunities to make certain changes to the express entry system, and I want to be careful not to promise something specific on caregivers on this until we have the details. But just one thing that I think is going to be really helpful with the change that we're pursuing with respect to express entry is the system's really good at bringing in people who are very qualified to do different jobs. It's not particularly good at identifying gaps in the Canadian economy and bringing people in to fill those gaps. So you might have two people that each have a PhD. One of them will be in a very in-demand sector. The other will be in a sector where there is no demand. They're treated equally under the express entry system. What I've seen through this pandemic, and it's really changed my own thinking, I get very offended when I hear people use high-skilled versus low-skilled. What we've seen over the course of this pandemic, a lot of those low-skilled people are essential workers, and our economy would collapse with it. I'm thinking healthcare providers, truckers. You all know as well as I do some of these groups. The changes, if we make the express entry system more flexible, will allow me or whoever succeeds me in this position to actually identify what are the key gaps in the Canadian economy that we need to fill. And we would have the ability to say, well, maybe it's going to be caregivers in British Columbia, maybe it's going to be truck drivers in Nova Scotia. And we would be able to say, okay, let's do a draw on truck drivers from Nova Scotia and caregivers from British Columbia. And if we have that flexibility, we're going to have a much more efficient immigration system because we'll actually be targeting the needs of the communities more effectively. So that's something that we're working on right now.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, I have a very small question also. On behalf of Hope Seva Society, my society working so hard for last few years, and we already signed one petition, and Mr. Srai know that as well, and Mr. Suktaliwal. And right now we signed up another petition, E3955, supporting the Motion 44 bill, the one Mr. Srai working on it. So a lot of people, undocumented people, always we have that issue we discussed with Mr. Srai. Don't you think government should give them an open work permit so they can build their status here?
Yes, although my answer is a little bit more nuanced than that. I think there's things that we need to do to make it easier for people who are here, who've been working here, who have families here for a long time, to give them some certainty to allow them to take part in the legitimate economy, not the underground economy. We've had some real success with a pilot program we ran with construction sector in Toronto. And I think it's really showed us the potential to bring people out of the shadows who are making really positive contributions to their communities, not just in their work, not just in their family life, but volunteering at nonprofits, making a really, really important difference. We don't have a full picture of the scale of the number of people who are undocumented and making a contribution in Canada, and we've also got other people that we don't want to create a draw to bring people here who come in contrary to the rules. But developing the policy in the right way that will allow us to give access to legitimate access to our economy to people who've been accessing it in an illegitimate way, if that makes sense, in many instances for many years, is something that I think we should be pursuing. We have to do the policy work to make sure we get it right, to make sure we create the right pathways for people. Every time you dig in, you start to see 18 new issues about if you do it this way, you create more problems. If you do it that way, maybe you can make a positive difference. But to answer your question, the results of that pilot have showed me that there's real potential to do a lot of good, to give people legitimate status who've been here and who've been working, but are not officially documented.
Consider a